Coming back to China, the anti-government protests there continue. And this is despite the country relaxing the COVID-19 curbs. That's right. The mighty Chinese regime has finally given in. It plans to ease its zero-COVID policy. But despite this, the protests continue. Let me start with China's move. It is slowly pulling back the COVID-19 restrictions, loosening its quarantine rules and ending mass testing requirements. What explains this? Is it because of the protests? We don't know. China says it's doing so because the infections are slowing down. Let me quote a statement from one of China's senior-most pandemic officials, Vice Premier Sun Chunlan. She said, I'm quoting, the country is facing a new situation and new tasks in epidemic prevention and control. As the pathogenicity of the Omicron virus weakens, more people are vaccinated and experience in containing the virus is accumulated. That sounds good, but is that really the case? We'll get there in a bit. But first, let's look at where the rules are relaxed or being relaxed. According to reports, restrictions have been lifted in cities like Guangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai, Chengdu, Shenzhen and Urumqi. Let's look at what they are doing one by one. In the southwestern metropolis of Chengdu, authorities say people can enter public places and the metro without a negative COVID-19 test. But they still need a green health code confirming that they have not traveled to a high-risk area. In Beijing, the health authorities have asked the hospitals to not deny treatment to people without a negative PCR test. Earlier, you had to show a negative test taken within 48 hours. That rule no longer holds. In Urumqi, where the protests first started, authorities have reopened the supermarkets, hotels, restaurants and ski resorts. In the southern factory hub of Dongguan, authorities say those who meet the specific conditions should be allowed to quarantine at their homes. It did not say what those conditions would be. To sum it up, China is slowly but definitely pulling back its zero-COVID policy. Is this really because the virus is weakening, or is it because of the protests? Well, knowing China, it will never admit that it has buckled under pressure. But the people of China definitely think that it has. Listen to these voices.
It's like I mentioned before, the government's finally recognized or realized that people or those voices from people, so they had to do something. Otherwise, maybe, I don't know, maybe the product is going to be upgrades and all the cities, I mean, all over China are going to protest again, and the people are going to maybe fight it for that.
I think a progressive reopening is the right move because now everybody knows the Omicron variant is a very infectious, but the mortality is low. So a timely adjustment of the epidemic prevention policy is very appropriate.
I think the dynamic zero-COVID policy may not be realistic because after all, the whole world has opened up now. I think it would be very difficult for China to stay in lockdown all the time. Sooner or later, you will need to interact with others. So I think it's still necessary to ease the curbs appropriately.
Now here's the flip side. While some are happy that the restrictions are being eased, others are clearly still upset with the Chinese regime. And they are finding it tough to forget the cruelties that they were subjected to. Which is why they are pulling off stunts like these. These images are from Lanzhou city in the Gansu province. A quarantine camp here was set on fire by unknown individuals. Observers say this is proof that the people's anger has not died down. And look at these images now. They are from Chengdu in western China. Even there, the resistance persists. This video shows a group of protesters gathered at a city square slamming the government's atrocities.
今天我一直非常愤怒的一点是，为什么我们说一句实话？ 我这2天我在微信、我的抖音我都在发，但是我所有的朋友都来劝我小心被抓进去。这一抓就是要坐几年？为什么现在这个时代，中国共产党是多少倍的？为什么不愿意？
What do these images tell you? That anger against zero COVID may have subsided to some extent, but the public anger against China's draconian policies continues. And there is no saying when it's going to die down. Meanwhile, the international pressure on China has not died down either. In the latest instance, a bipartisan group of 40 US senators have warned China that any violent crackdown on the protests henceforth will do extraordinary damage to the US-China relationship. The group represents lawmakers from both sides, Democrats and Republicans. And this is what they have said in a statement. Let me quote. We caution the CCP in the strongest possible terms not to once again undertake a violent crackdown on peaceful Chinese protesters who simply want more freedom. If that happens, we believe there will be grave consequences for the US-China relationship, causing extraordinary damage to it. And that's not all. France has joined America in condemning China, not just over zero COVID, but over China's belligerence in general. This happened during the French president's visit to the White House. He attended a state dinner there, organized by the Bidens. Shortly after it was held, the two countries issued a joint statement. Let me quote now. The United States and France will continue to coordinate on our concerns regarding China's challenge to the rules-based international order, including respect for human rights, and to work together with China on important global issues like climate change. Has China responded to this statement? Yes, it has. In a sharply worded statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has asked the two countries to not make an issue of China, quote unquote. It further says that China is an opportunity for the world, not what the US and France are portraying it to be. I repeat, China is an opportunity for the world. We wonder how exactly, because last we checked, China's actions, both at home and abroad, in no way depict China being of any help, neither to its own citizens, nor to the rest of the world. But if there is one thing the country indeed excels in, is enforcing its will and killing any opportunity for a dialogue. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.